Cultural production is the process of creating artefacts, and in this context we mean media, that represent our society for a particular time frame, like a photograph, a radio documentary, or a written piece of literature perhaps. In talking about cultural production, there are a few ways that we can approach it. One is to take the power relation argument, which incorporates the thinking of Michel Foucault and Pierre Bourdieu, and question the role of governance along with economics within cultural production. They note that it depends on how creative works are read, and that's in a social context or not, as to whether social conditions determine the state of play in which culture is produced. In other words, culture produces culture, and how it is read is determined by the consumer's understanding of its context, which depends on the level of political freedom within their society. Cultural production is challenged when new players emerge from within the field to disrupt the existing norms and governance structures. Disruption, such as the removal of cultural gatekeepers, such as curators and critics, can impact on the producer-consumer relationship and the thinking around this media. This kind of disruption ultimately impacts the cultural and economic value of the media. In this regard, cultural production is a process that is often prized by those with expertise or specialised knowledge in the field, and is generally controlled by institutions. To take the perspective of cultural activist and copyright lawyer Lawrence Lessig, cultural production is something that should be free from restraint. While copyright exists to protect the intellectual property of the creatives working in this space, it may not be the best form of protection in the online space. Certainly not within the social media space, where content is produced, remixed, reproduced, reappropriated, and recontextualized. Remix activities are created within social context to describe cultural memories, and are often the work of several authors improving or contributing to the work of the authors before them. Lessig's work has as its legacy the Creative Commons licensing regime. It aspires towards this free culture movement, a movement that is at the foundations of social media and cultural production. One typical form of remix culture that might demonstrate the benefits of free culture is hip-hop as an art form. Think of a DJ taking samples from previously published music and creating something new from it. The newness is the key to cultural production in this form, and that's creating something new from existing cultural artifacts. It is not a republished version of the old cultural artifact, but a rebuilt and reappropriated version to provide a unique understanding of the contemporary social, political, and economic landscape. Another popular mode of cultural production is memes. We've all seen those pictures of cute cats and dogs with inspirational quotes, or perhaps a pun plastered across a Lord of the Ring character, Willy Wonka, or perhaps the sexiest mugshot, followed by the phrase, steals your heart and your DVD player. Any of these are created by, well, who really knows? But they're reflective of an accurate way of collecting our cultural memories from a non-organisational perspective. And this is the core argument of cultural production in relation to social media. The balance of control is entirely disrupted as users, publics, and citizens now have social media tools at their disposal to create their own culture. We are not consuming cultural artifacts that are disjointed or abstract from culture itself. Instead, we are taking the front seat as these producers of these materials. Social media, as we noted in the first module, is providing us with tools to create and publish content. And of course, this disruption creates its own creative economy that operates alongside the existing and traditional market models. Now, this all occurs outside of the traditional institutional control, which is another of the core concerns of cultural production across social media platforms. With this user-centric focus of creating cultural production with social media, users have the control to what content is created and when. This, of course, challenges the governance of the material as highlighted by Foucault and Bourdieu, ultimately disrupting the associated economic model of cultural production, the supply and demand relationship. For example, where cultural institutions such as a gallery or a museum once maintained the role of gatekeepers of cultural goods, social media users are now creating, publishing, and archiving their own cultural goods. Now, that's not to say that the role of the gallery or museum is defunct, but instead there is another cultural space emerging that operates outside of this traditional model from production to consumption. The disruption of cultural production through co-creation does, however, promote the use of social media for cultural production to enable niche expertise to emerge, accurate user recollection of events, and new interesting perspectives on existing production models.